Welcome back everyone. In this video, we're going to take a character from the Elemental demo and add an animation rig to it using Blender, Rigify, and Uefy 2. This project is freely available from the Unreal Launcher. It was one of the first tech demos used to introduce the engine. So this is quite an old project, and this character that you can see on the screen right now, its armature is not really compatible with the Unreal Engine Mannequin because it predates that by quite a few years. We're going to use the add-on to give this character a brand new skeleton with full IK and FK chains. We have a lot of accessories like shoulder pads and armor plates on the back and on the sides, so we will take a look at how to add additional bones beyond the basic mannequin hierarchy to support these items. Even though we use this character as an example in this video, it's really more about the process. So you could take a character from just any source like a marketplace or maybe a character creator, and as long as it meets a few basic requirements, which we will get into later in this video, you can use the add-on and you can use Blender to just replace the skeleton and give it a rig so that it is compatible with both Blender and with the engine. This is going to be more of an advanced tutorial, so if you haven't used the add-on before, or if you're new to Rigify or just new to Blender in general, so maybe check out some of the other tutorials that I've made. There'll be links in the description. You should definitely start over there. Maybe just not start with this one if you haven't seen any of this before. I've also made a few animation tutorials, so be sure to check those out as well. Part of the reasons that we go through this process, aside from all of the compatibility issues between Blender and the engine, is that this process gives us an animation rig in Blender. Like this character is already moving about, walking about, but this is only a deformation chain where skeletons move the mesh parts directly. But an animation rig may be composed of hundreds of bones, where the purpose is to just give us controls that we can easily create new animations. That's something we can't do with just the deformation chain. So be sure to check out those tutorials as well. I'm just going to let this video play out to the end before we start the tutorial. I'm going to select everything in the scene, X to delete, and then set the unit scale to 0.01. Setting the unit scale cuts off part of our view, so we press N to bring up this panel and then set the clipping distance to 50 meters. So we have the full range of view again. Then we can do File, Import, FBX, and bring in our mesh. So I'm going to select this mesh. I will turn off animation, and in armature, I will set automatic bone orientation. This value has to be determined on a mesh by mesh basis. So it might not be appropriate for your character, but it is for this one. Now we can just create another scene collection like so. And then I'm just going to bring in the Unreal Engine Mannequin just for reference. So we will select the mannequin. Again, we don't want any animation and we want automatic bone orientation. Now I could select one of these bones like that and then do GY1 to move it back by one grid line. Okay, let's just examine what we have in the mannequin. So I'm going to turn off the character and then select this, go to the armature properties and put this in front. And then we can go into pose mode. And I'm just going to hide some of these larger bones like that. So I'm just going to hide this, hide that. And we want to examine what the spine in the Unreal Engine Mannequin looks like. So if you see here, we've got 4 bones in the main body, okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4, starting with the pelvis and going all the way to spine _03. And then we have 2 additional bones, one for the neck and one for the head. So if we want to rig our own characters, we need a similar kind of setup in the imported mesh. Okay, so let's hide the mannequin now and examine what the imported character looks like. So again, same thing, select the armature, go to these properties here, put this in front and go into pose mode. Again, we can just select one of these large IK bones and hide them. And do remember that the add-on will build us the IK setup by itself. So we don't really care what the original IK bones look like. because they get built for us. And the same is true for the twist bones. So we don't really bother with creating or managing twist bones because the add-on will build them as well. So I'm just going to hide these large IK bones so we have a better view of the character. And now we need to do two things here. We have to identify all of the bones that are in this character, but not in the Unreal Engine Mannequin. For example, take this bone here. This controls part of the armor that is attached to the side of this character. And this bone has control of the shoulder pads. So these things are not in the Unreal Engine Mannequin skeleton, but we need to identify what all of these bones are, make a list so we can recreate them for our character that goes to the engine. But that comes in later. First, we need to identify whether or not the body has the necessary 4 bones in the spine and 2 bones for the neck and head. So we can start with this one. It's called pelvis, and it corresponds with the pelvis in the Unreal Engine Mannequin. So I'm just going to zoom in over here and go into wireframe mode. And the next bone will be this. It's called spine_01. It may be named something else in your particular character, but it needs to be there. But then we have spine_02, and we also have a 4th spine_03 here. It's kind of hidden behind these 2 bones, so it's kind of hard to see, but it is there. So we have the required 4 in the main body, and they move the character. We also have a neck right here, and we also have a head. And you can rotate these bones and just confirm that they are working correctly. Now, what happens if your character doesn't have the required number of bones? You might need to either select one of these bones and subdivide, or pick a bone and then just delete it. So the number has to match for the main body, 1 for the neck and 1 for the head. 6 bones in total. Now that means that you might have to adjust the weight paint. That's usually fairly simple. If your character is already weight painted, you just have to smooth over the weight paint between 2 bones. But for this character, we have the required numbers. We are only interested in bones that exist in the Unreal Engine Mannequin, so that are not IKs or twist bones. So that kind of limits the set fairly down to quite a bit. So for example, you can see there are extra bones beyond the head. We don't care. We don't care about this bone. We don't care about any of these. But we need a clavicle because the mannequin has a clavicle, and so we have a clavicle here. It may not be called clavicle in your mesh, maybe called something else, but you need a corresponding bone for that. Similarly, we need 1 for the upper arm, 1 for the lower arm, 1 for the hand. So these are 4 bones for this limb, and there are also 4 bones in the leg. We also need to make sure that the bones in the limbs are pointing correctly towards each other. So for example, this toe bone is pointing straight up, so we can't have that. So I'm just going to go into edit mode and again hide this large bone. Then I can select this part here and do Shift S, cursor to selected. Then I can select this bone, R to rotate, X to lock the axis, and then 90. Well, that kind of rotates it around center. So I'm just going to do 3D cursor here and then R, X, 90. And that'll fix that. And then I can select this part and do Shift S, selection to cursor. Okay, and then I can select this bone and this one, and then do right click on this and symmetrize, and that'll fix the other side. So similarly, this arm bone is not pointing towards the hand. So what we can do is just hide this, select this part, do Shift S, cursor to selected, and then I will move the lower arm bone into its correct place by doing selection to cursor. Okay, so now I can select the lower arm bone and then shift select the upper arm bone and then do Shift N, active bone. Active bone is the last bone that is selected in a multiple selection. So this is going to recalculate the rolls based on the last bone that was selected. So these are now more properly aligned. For the last bit, we need to make sure that the hand is aligned like it is in the mannequin. So in the mannequin, this bone is kind of centered between the middle and the index fingers. And also we need to make sure that, well, let's just go into orthographic view and go to solid view. We want to make sure that this hand bone is rolled in such a way that one of these flat surfaces is towards the palm and the other flat surface is toward the top. So I'm just going to go into item and roll this bone manually. It doesn't matter which side we pick right now. Just make it like so, right? So one flat side is towards the palm and the other flat side is toward the top of the hand. And the The bone itself will be kind of between these two fingers. And from the front, it's also, I think it's a little bit lower than that. You can open up the mannequin for reference if you want to. Okay, so that should be okay. And then we can just select this one and then this one and then right click and symmetrize to fix the other side. And that takes care of the edits that we need to make to this character. Just a quick recap. When we started, the first thing we did was to make sure that we had the required number of bones. So 6 in the spine, 4 in the limbs. And the second thing that we have done is to make sure that the bones point towards each other in the limbs. So we don't care about the spine or any of the other accessory bones here, just these 4 bones in the limbs. So now that that is done, we can move on to the next stage. I'm going to turn on names and scroll down to the Uefy script panel. Okay, so I'm going to click on refresh list. I will make sure that this value is the name of the Unreal Engine mannequin that we imported. And this value is the name of the armature for the character that we are working on. Okay, so it'll be this character right here. Then further down, we can go to character operators and look at this drop down. It's going to be empty. I'm going to do a scan to get a list of these names, and it'll be in this custom value here. And I will also click on this button here to get 2 extra values. So I'm just going to select custom here and then go to scripting. Then I can open this drop down and select the Uefy mapping custom. That is the custom from the drop down list, and then just take this to the top. And then I will drag on this corner to get another window. And for this drop down, I can select the Uefy mapping mannequin. And again, take this to the top. Our purpose is to rename these bones so that they have the same name as their corresponding bone in the Unreal Engine mannequin. For example, this bone is called B_MF_pelvis, but in the mannequin it's simply called pelvis. And the next bone should be simply called spine_02, like it is in the mannequin. So we could just go step by step, do F2 and manually rename all these bones, but we have tools in the add-on that can help us with this. One of these tools is in the scripting panel custom file. The first column has names of all of the bones that are in the armature, and the second column is what we would like those names to be. So for example, for this pelvis, I can simply copy paste this to be the same name as it is in the Unreal Engine mannequin, and the script will just rename all of them in one go for us. Now, if this was not a unique character, if this file was to be reused, I would just fill this out the whole thing in one go. But because I know that this is a unique character and I won't reuse this file, there are some additional tools that I will use to help cut down on the work that I have to do. So I'm going to scroll further down here to the bone rename tool. It'll be over here, bone rename tool. And then I will use this tool to rename some of these bones. Now, it's not always going to work because most of the characters that you'll find in the real world from marketplaces and whatever, they'll have a lot of bones, additional bones attached to them that are not in the mannequin. For example, the spine has a lot of armor bones and other things attached to it. So this tool cannot determine what path to follow unless there is only one path. For example, I can select this leg and then I can do left leg here, left leg, and then rename bones. And you'll see it's called thigh, calf, foot, ball, exactly like we want it to be. And similarly, I can select the base bone for the chain, and then I can just do right leg like that, and then rename bones, and all of these bones get renamed for me in one go. But it's not going to work on the spine. For example, if I pick the pelvis and then I select spine here, like so, I'm not going to run this, but it'll mess up because there are a lot of additional bones involved here and it doesn't know what path to follow. It won't work on the arms in this character either, but I can rename the fingers, and that still saves me a lot of copy pasting. So this is going to be the left index, rename, see, it gets fixed. This is the middle. I'm going to scroll back up here to the character operators and run scan one more time. Now that that's done, we can go back to scripting. And if you look at this file here that we had open previously, so let me just scroll to here. This is the Uefy custom mapping. You'll see that some of the names in this first column have changed. Okay, and now they match what they would be in the Unreal Engine Mannequin. So any name that is already correct is something that I don't have to fix. So all of the fingers are fixed, so I don't have to do any of this copy pasting. And the only thing that is left for me to do is fix the spine and the 4 bones in each of the arms, because well, the bone rename tool fixed the legs as well. Now I can start at the top of this column and then just go down one by one. And I'm only interested in bones that exist in the Unreal Engine Mannequin. So the first thing that we come across is the pelvis. So I'm just going to copy this and put this over there. And then this doesn't matter. These are all correct. Okay, so we get to the spine. So spine 1 should be called this. And similarly, we just update them one by one. Okay, so up next is neck. So where is the neck bone? Let me just click on this and go to neck. And the neck is called this. Okay, so do keep in mind that you have to be exact with this. It cannot be any permutation of what the actual name is. So if it's called neck_01, it has to be exactly this. That's one reason why we're just copy pasting and not typing this in manually. So I went ahead and fixed the remaining bones. So if I just scroll down here, you can see I renamed the head and the bones in the arms, like the clavicle, the upper arm and the lower arm, the hand. And the rest of it's just all right anyway. Now, if you get confused about which bones you need to update, remember you can always bring in the mannequin and then you can just click on each of these bones and see what they are called and where they are located and what the corresponding bone name should be. I'm going to put away the mannequin like so. And now that the scripting file has been updated, we can simply select this armature and then do apply. And that should fix all of our names. Now, again, we are only interested in the names that exist in the mannequin and are not IK or twist bones. So I'm going to scroll up here, turn off names, and then turn on axes. These bones have an orientation. They are rotated in a specific way, and you can open up the mannequin and see how the bones are oriented in that, just for reference. So you see this line, the x-axis, the red line. This needs to point towards the back of the mesh for this bone, the same as it is in the mannequin. So you can reference the mannequin for this, and we need to rotate these bones so they are oriented correctly, but there is an easier way to do this rather than do it manually. I will just click on auto rolls here, or magic rolls, and this is going to try and guess what the orientation should be. It gets it mostly right. It's more accurate for T-pose characters, but we can fix whatever it misses out. Now to check this, we can simply zoom in on one of these bones. Let's start with the pelvis. You can see X points towards the back, so this is correct, and X points to the back on this one. This is correct. This is correct. And let me just grab this, and you can see the X is pointing towards the back, so just undo that, and this is correct as well. The neck is correct, but the head bone is a little tricky on this one. So let's go to the side. Because the way it was oriented, it was not rotated correctly. So I'm just going to grab this bit here, set it like so, and then we can go down here, select this bone, and then set this to -X and then roll the bone. Okay, so now X is pointing towards the back, and these are the 6 bones that we are concerned with, and we can ignore the rest. Now we can do the same for the limbs. So I'm just going to zoom out here, go down here, X points towards the back. So these 2 bones are correct, and we'll get to the feet later on. And then further up here, the clavicle must have X towards the back, the upper arm, the lower arm. Let's just grab this, and you can see X is towards the back, and we'll get to the hands in a minute. Now for the feet, the foot bone will have X-axis in the same direction as this line over here, and the toe will have X-axis pointing straight up. For the hand, Let's just zoom in over there. It'll be pointing straight out from the bottom of the hand. The same is true for the fingers. You can see, okay, we may have some problems here. Okay, this finger is correct. Every bone has x-axis exiting from the bottom of the finger, but there seems to be an issue over here. This bone did not roll correctly, so I'm just going to roll this to -x. So again, x-axis out from the bottom. This bone needs to be updated as well. And this is going to be on -e. Right, so this is correct. And this is also needs to be updated, also needs to be updated, and also needs to be updated. Again, this auto roll things works much better on T-pose characters rather than something like this, but that's okay. We have fixed all of these fingers. And remember, for the thumb, the bottom of the thumb is quite often towards the side and not exactly pointing towards the floor. So you can see the x-axis is out from the bottom of the thumb, which is actually towards the side. So these bones are all correct. So whenever you make changes like that, let me just deselect everything, box select everything like so, right click, and then symmetrize to fix the other side. So you have to do that. Again, we didn't need to do that with the head because there's just a single bone in the center. But whenever you roll a bone like this, be sure to symmetrize and fix the other side. And do keep in mind that we consider only the left side. So just these two bones, those 4 bones, and the spine. So we don't really care what's going on that side. And the orientations will quite often be flipped. So just fix them on this side. Use symmetrize to fix the other side, and it will automatically be correct. With that out of the way, we can go back up here, turn off the axes, and I'm going to bring back the mannequin and go into object mode and select the armature for our main character. Now, for this next part, we need to make sure that the armature has location of 000, rotation of 000, and scale of 111. And the same must be true for the mesh itself. So click on the mesh, check these values, click on the armature, check them again. You can do Control A and apply all transforms to get rid of any rotations or scaling issues. Once that is done, we can go scroll down here, and I'm going to click on Pose Character, and that'll match the pose of our character to be the same as the mannequin, and then we don't need the mannequin anymore. Now we can adjust the feet a little bit more. So I'm just going to go to the front view, scroll down here, set this to individual origins, then I can rotate this into place like that, and then go to the side view and then rotate it into place like that. And then I can do Control C to copy it, Shift Control V to fix the other side. I'm just going to check from the front once more. Then I could do A to select all, G to grab, Z to lock axis, and bring everything down a little bit. And I'm just going to check from the side. Maybe it's a bit too far down, so about there should be okay. Right now we're just interested in what the mesh looks like. So if the bones of the foot get kind of oriented so they're no longer straight, it doesn't matter right now. We want the mesh to be as close as it is to the Unreal Engine mannequin's default pose as we can, then we can fix the armature later. If I scroll back out here, Control Alt A to deselect everything, and then if I go into edit mode, you'll see that the rest pose is still what the original was, but we want this to be like this in our updated pose all the time. So we can go into object mode. I'm going to select the mesh, okay, not the armature, the mesh, then scroll down here, and there's a button called update rest pose. So just click on this, and now if we go back to object mode, select the armature, go into pose mode, and then go into edit mode, and you'll see there is no change. So the rest pose has been updated. We can still make one more edit that will improve the final result. So I'm just going to go to the front view like that, and then scroll down here. When we move the feet, the alignment of the bones was no longer straight. So I'm just going to go into edit mode. I will select this part here, and then I will simply move it into place like that. And then I could adjust the roll, straighten it out a little, and then adjust the roll for the foot bone as well, straighten it out a little again. And then with this bone selected and that one, I could right click on it, symmetrize to fix the other side. And then Alt A to deselect everything, Now we can do Shift S to send the cursor to world origin. So the cursor goes over there. And then in object mode, I'm just going to create a new scene collection. Select this one, and then I can do Shift A, armature, human Metarig. And it'll be really small because of the unit scale. So I'll just do S to scale, type in 100 to make it a little larger, which is not enough because this is a very large character. So I'll just type S again and then use the mouse to scale it so the shoulders are a rough match. Okay, this doesn't need to be exact, but just get a rough match on the shoulders. Let's put this thing in front as well. Now we want to make sure that the scale for the Metarig is 111. So just do Control A and apply all transforms, so that fixes the location, rotation, and scale for us. Now we can scroll down here and we can set the, well, we have to click on refresh list, and then we can set the Metarig to be this value. And then we can click on fix Metarig and then pose Metarig, and that'll position the Metarig onto our character like that. And now we can fix the spine. So I'm going to deselect everything like that, and then I can select the armature for the character and then control click on the Metarig. So I have these two objects selected at the same time, and then I can go into edit mode with both of them selected, and then I could box select this half like that, and then just hide it, and then do the same on the other side. From the side view, we can select any of the bones in the Metarig like that, and then press L to select them. Okay, so this is going to select the lower 4 bones, and now I can move them around with the G key. So I'm going to match the bottom of the pelvis with the pelvis in the original armature like that. Okay, and then let's just go into wireframe mode so we can see what's going on. And then I can select these 3 bones like so, and then I can match the next joint with like that, and then I can select these 2 bones and then match the next joint like that, and then this one I could match the next joint like that, and then I can also bring this down here. Okay, so now generally we haven't done this before, but we're going to put a break in the spine. You can only put a break at the neck, otherwise Rigify will generate errors. So we can do the same thing for the neck. I'm going to select this bone here, press L to select the other 2, and then I can match the base of the neck like so, and then I can move this joint down here to about over there, and that should work out well for us. So I'm just going to bring this down, lock it on the Z-axis, and over there seems fine. Okay, so now let's just hide this for a minute and look at, well, not the whole thing, just the bones, I guess. So just look at what this Metarig spine will look like. You may want to adjust it a little bit, may want to update weight painting if you think that is necessary or it's going to help, but generally a spine like this is going to work. Okay, I'm going to bring back the hidden bones and go back to solid mode, and then from the front we're still editing the Metarig. Okay, so the character's armature is still hidden, and we just need to update this heel bone. So I'm just going to grab this, lock it on the x-axis, and then just slide it over there, and then click on this part, G X to lock on the axis, and then bring it over there, and then select the whole bone, go to the side view, grab it again, lock it on the y-axis, move it back to about over there, and then I could right click on this and symmetrize to fix the other side. And that's just about everything that we need to do for the Metarig. Okay, so I'm just going to hide the Metarig for just a second and bring back the character's original armature. Let's unhide all of that as well. So we're basically done with this. So I'm just going to go to object mode, select the mesh, and then I'm going to scroll down here and click on extract mesh. This is going to separate the mesh from the armature. And if your character is made of multiple parts, multiple meshes, they will all be separated, so you don't have to do this separately. Now I can just drag this mesh object right into the collection with the Metarig, and then we don't need this anymore. Okay, so if we bring back the Metarig, everything is basically in place, but right now if we click on generate rig, it's going to create an error from Rigify because of this break that we put in the spine. To fix that, we can go into pose mode, select the neck bone, go into the bone properties, and then I'm just going to deselect connect chain. And that's all we have to do. So back into object mode, and then in the armature properties, we find the Rigify buttons over there, and then just click on generate rig to get our final Rigify rig into place. So I'm just going to select the rig and then put it in front. Now I can click on the mesh, shift click on the rig, then do Control P, armature deform. This is going to attach the mesh to the rig, and then I can select just the rig by itself and then scroll down here to generated rig operators. And I'm going to make sure that the mode is set to epic skeleton, and then I can just click on build skeleton and give this a minute. I'm going to hide the Metarig, and at this point, the character is basically rigged and working. For the primary chain of bones that exist in the Unreal Engine Mannequin, for the shoulder pads and the armor plates, we need to add additional bones to the Metarig, but that's relatively easy now that we have the main character working. I'm going to bring back the Metarig, go into object mode, select the Metarig, go to the front view, and then I can go into edit mode, and then from over here, I'm going to find basic super copy. This is going to get used a lot. It's a very versatile Metarig sample. I'm just going to do add sample. Because of the unit scale, it'll come in small, so I'll do S to scale, type in 100 to make it a bit larger so we can see, then use the G key to move it into position like so, and then improve the position like that. Go to the side view and move it about over there, right about over there. Again, from the front view, I'm going to grab this part, G key again, and then place it like so, and then move it into position like that. Now I'm going to press F2, and I'm going to call this armor flap left. Now I can go to the bone properties, open up relations, and set the parent to be the spine. So I'm just going to select the spine from this list. The spine is this bone, and what this does is it sets this as the parent for the armor flap, and you can see that there's this dotted line between them now. We also need to set the layer for this bone. For instance, this spine bone is on this layer, this leg bone is on that layer. So I'm just going to put the armor flap on the same layer as the leg bone is because they're nearby. When we select the left leg controls in Rigify's user interface to make them visible, at the same time, the armor control for the left flap will also show up with those same bones because of this layering system. If we bring back the original armature for this character, you'll see that this bone is kind of pointed that way. This is how it was imported into Blender. But we made our new bone in a way that makes more sense relative to our mesh. And we can get away with this because this is not a primary chain bone. It's not in the Unreal Engine Mannequin, so we can actually change what it looks like. But right now, as you can see, it's not exactly at the same place as the original. So I'm just going to improve that a little. So I'm going to select the original armature, edit mode, select this part here, Shift S, cursor to selected, go back to object mode, select the Metarig, edit mode, and I'm just going to move this bone to where the cursor is. And what this will allow me to do is that when I export this character to Unreal Engine, if there are animations that were authored for the original armature, that will retarget a lot better if the pivot point is at the exact same position, even if the bone is pointing somewhere else. And we can get away with this because it's a single bone. There aren't any attachments to it. There aren't any children that depend on the location of its endpoint, so we can get away with this. But for other bones that are in the form of chains, you might have to actually put them exactly where they are in your new Metarig, as they are in the original armature. If you look up here at the shoulder for this character, you'll see that this bone here controls the shoulder pad. So let's just go to object mode. I'm going to select this, go to edit mode, select this part here, Shift S, cursor to select it, and putting the cursor here is just going to help us place this bone in our Metarig a little bit better, a little easier. And then go back to object mode, select the Metarig again, make sure it is the Metarig from over there. And then what we can do is go into edit mode, and then in the armature section, we can add one of these Metarig samples. A lot of them are deprecated, and the only ones supported by Uefy are listed in the facts section on the product page. There will be a link in the description and on screen, so you can check which ones are supported. Most commonly used one is going to be super copy. So I'm just going to add this sample one more time, scale it up by 100 again because of the unit scale, and then I will do Shift S, selection to cursor. It'll move over there, and then from the front view, I can again just grab this part here and then move it like that, and then from the side I will move it like so. I'm just going to turn off the original armature so we can look at the Metarig and this new bone that we've just added. So I'm going to select this, press F2. Let's call this shoulder armor left. Now I can go into the bone data properties and set its parent to be the shoulder bone on the left side. For the layers, let's put this on the same layer as the main torso bone. So it is this layer over there. So I'm just going to select this and put it on the same layer. Now, if we look at the original armature, I'm just going to hide the Metarig here. This shoulder pad is actually controlled by 3 bones. So there is the main bone that will move the entire pad, but there are also 2 additional bones that compress and stretch the upper and bottom parts of this shoulder pad. So I'm just going to select one of those bones. Let's go into object mode, select this armature, go to edit mode. Let's go into wireframe mode, and I think it's this one. Nope. Yeah, it's this bone here. It controls the top part of this shoulder pad. So I'm just going to do Shift S, cursor to selected. Or rather, I'm just going to select this, just this part here, then do Shift S, cursor to selected, like that. And then we can go back to object mode, into solid mode, and then back into the Metarig. And let's turn this off for the minute. So now let's add those 2 additional bones. So we can select the Metarig, go into edit mode, and then same as before, we will go into the armature section, add in another basic super copy sample, S to scale, type in 100 to make it larger, and then Shift S, selection to cursor, so it moves it right where we want it to be. Then I can grab this part here, drag it up like so. So okay, I'm kind of just following the curvature of this shoulder pad like that. Then I will select this entire bone, do Shift D, that'll make me a duplicate. Then I can again select just this part here. Now I can move this to the bottom part over there. So it is to this control the lower part of this shoulder pad. Okay, so something like that. Now let's edit these bones. So I'm going to call this shoulder armor top on the left side and shoulder armor bottom on the left side. Right, and same as before, we need to parent these samples to something that is already in the Metarig. That's just a rule we have to follow with Uefy add-on. So we go down to the bone properties, and then we can just set this to be the shoulder pad bone itself. So this bone that we added previously for both of these things, the parent is going to be the shoulder pad itself. like that. And then again, this thing is on that layer, so I'm going to put everything on that layer. So it shares a layer with the torso now. Now I'm going to select this part here. That is the base of the head, and then do Shift S, cursor to selected, and then I can add another sample. Same thing, basic super copy. Like I said, this gets used a lot. Scale it up by 100, Shift S, selection to cursor. Right, it gets it will overlap with the previous bone, and then I'm going to call this bone to be the face, and in the data properties I'm going to attach it to the head, or well, the head is going to be called spine underscore 006, like that, and then it should be on the same layer as the rest of these bones are, like that. Now this facial rig that we're constructing is not the same thing as the face rig that comes with Rigify. You can add that if you want, but that's a really complicated thing to set up. And right now we're just going to follow this very simple facial setup that exists in the original armature for this character. So if we go back to object mode, go back to solids, and let's just look at the original here for a minute. You can see there are two bones you can find here. If I edit these, this one is called face, and then this one is called jaw. Now, I don't think this was supposed to be pointing in this direction. It's just how it got imported into Blender. So rather than placing it here, I'm going to place the face bone what it would be more like in another Rigify project. So I put the face bone in, and I just need to add a jawbone like that, and then we will be done. So I'm just going to select this part here, do Shift S, cursor to selected, and then we could go back to object mode. We can select the Metarig and then turn off the original armature again. So now, same thing, back to the armature section, go into edit mode, and then we can add another sample. So it'll always come in down there somewhere. So scale it up by 100, Shift S, selection to cursor. It goes over there. Let's take a look at it from the side, and then I can just grab this part and put it in like that, and that's our jaw, right? So we can put this to be the jaw, and then in the bone properties, this is going to be connected to the face, like so, and everything. We're putting everything in the torso layers. So that goes there. You can change this later on. This is a really simple thing to change. It's not a problem. If you don't like the current placement, we can always update this later. Now, if we look at the original armature again, and I'm just going to turn that on, turn off the Metarig, object mode, select the armature, and then let's go into wireframe mode, or let's go into edit mode. It's a bit easier to see. You can see there's bone here, right? This controls the entirety of the backside armor plate on this character. So we need something similar in this position in our Metarig. So I'm just going to do Shift S, cursor to selected, and then get out of here with solid mode, object mode, turn this off, and turn on the Metarig again. So again, same thing, go into, well, you have to select the Metarig, then go into edit, and then armature section, again, another super copy, add the sample, scale it up by 100, Shift S, selection to cursor, it goes over there. I'm going to call this the back armor. Then we can go to the bone properties, and I'm set this parent to be spine_spine.003. Okay, again, put this on the same layer as the rest of the torso, and now we just have one more addition left to make. So back to the armature section and then add another super copy, scale it up like so. Then we can go to the side view like that, and then use the G key to move it up till about there. And this one should go roughly like this. So I'm just going to grab this part and put it like that. And then we're going to call this the front flap. And we're going to parent this to the spine, the bottom one. And again, set the layer to be the same as the torso. So that is pretty much for all of the unique bones that we add to this character. Some of these bones we're going to duplicate onto the right side, for example, the shoulder pad and this flap over there. But if you look at the original armature, so let's just go into object mode, go to solid, and then let's hide the Metarig and look at the original armature here. You'll see that there are a lot of bones that we just did not account for. So many of these are IKs. Okay, so we can completely ignore the IK bones and all of the twist bones in the limbs if there are any. This character doesn't have any, but if there were, we could ignore those too because the add-on will build them for us. There are a lot of additional bones that don't deform the mesh but are there to support animation, support the animation process inside the engine. For example, like camera attachment points or attachment points for other objects. So we're going to ignore those too. So right now we're just interested in the bones that actually deform the mesh. So that pretty much covers everything that we need from this. So we can just turn this off, and going back to the Metarig, we can finish duplicating and finalizing this thing now. So edit mode, select this bone right there, and then right click on this and symmetrize. So that'll add it on the other side. But for this one, we do have to be careful about one thing. On this side, if you check the layers, it's on the same layer as this leg is over here, right? So you can check the layer over there. But if you check the layer on this leg, it's on this layer, but our symmetrized bone will still have the other layer from the other side. So we don't want that to happen. In this case, we just want to select this layer on this bone as well. So just going to update that. So that's just something to watch out for. For these three bones, we could just do right click and symmetrize because everything is on the torso. They're both fine on the torso layer. And again, you can always change this, so not a problem. The rest of the bones are unique, and it really doesn't matter. This is not going to affect those bones. It is important to know that you can only add samples to the Metarig. For example, this bone, if you go into pose mode in the bone properties, you can scroll down here, and in the Rigify type, it will tell you that this bone is of type basic super copy. And if you click on one of these fingers, it'll tell you that it is a limb super finger. Or if you click on the base of one of these samples, it'll tell you what kind of sample it is. For example, if I click on this on the base of this finger, it tells me it's a super finger. But if I click on the next bone, there's nothing here. Okay, so sometimes you can use samples like these, which is just a single bone, and sometimes you use samples like these, which are multiple bones. But in no case can you just attach a standalone bone directly to the Metarig that is not a Rigify sample type. So if you attach something to the Metarig, it always has to be from this list. Let's go into edit mode. From this list over here in the Rigify buttons, and again, from within this list, only those samples that are listed in the UE5 product page that are compatible and are supported. But you'll find that the ones that are supported will cover just about anything. Now we can go to object mode, and then in the armature properties, we could go to generate rig. But before we click on that, make sure that the rig that was previously generated is visible and not hidden. Otherwise, there will be a problem. And then we can just simply click on generate rig. and it'll update our rig for us, and then we can scroll down here and click on build skeleton another time and give this a minute. Now let's turn off the Metarig and take a look at this character. I'm just going to scroll up here and shift click on this layer to show the bones that were added by the Uefy add-on. Now we can see that because of our additions to the Metarig, we have additional controls like this for the shoulder pads and these bones here and these controls over there for the armor flaps on the side, and of course everything else that was also added. But if we try to move this character, you'll see that it is not deforming anything other than what it originally was just yet. To get the original weight painting to work for this character, the names of the vertex scripts need to match the names of our new bones. And we have two tools in Uefy to help us do this. So if I just scroll down here, I'm just going to update this just because we can right now. So I'm just going to make sure that this is at armature, pointing towards armature correctly. And then I'm just going to scroll down here to the skinning rename tool and the select vertex scripts tool. The first tool can be used to do a scan, and then in scripting, let me just drag this corner like so to get rid of this. And in this drop down, we can now select Uefy Skin Custom. Now what this does is it lets you rename the bones in the export chain. That is the bone hierarchy that will go to the Unreal Engine or any other software that you choose. And you can rename these bones to be whatever you want them to be. So it works the same way. First column is what the names currently are. Second column is what you would like them to be if you choose to rename them. We won't in this video, because this is kind of optional, not necessary. Do be careful that if you do rename a bone, you have to make sure that it's not going to have a collision with something else. For example, in this bone, if I wanted to just get rid of this prefix, that'll leave me with shoulder underscore armor underscore L, which is unfortunately the name of this control as well. So if you don't want to have this kind of collision, when you add bones to the Metarig, you need to add your own prefix to them. So at this stage, you can then rename them by simply removing the prefix, and it won't have a collision with any of the controls. So something to keep in mind. But this is kind of an optional step, so we're not going to do it right now. The main thing that we need to get this character to deform correctly is to update the names of the vertex scripts so they match this bone hierarchy. The vertex scripts are stored in the mesh. They are not in the armature. But to access them, we can simply select the armature here, and then from over here we could do scan vertex scripts. Now this is kind of useful because your armature may have multiple meshes attached, so this is going to cover all of them. So once you do the scan here, again, you get a custom file here. So from this drop down, we can select Uefy vertex scripts custom, and this is where you can see all of the vertex scripts. Now if you look down this list, you'll notice this bone right here, or this vertex scripts. It's called B_MF_jaw. So where did this name come from? So well, if you look back in the layout, I'm just going to turn off the armature and bring back the original armature. This was the one that was imported from the FBX file, the one that this character originally had. And then if we go into post mode and select this bone, you can see it is called B_MF_jaw. So the vertex script is just really the name of the bone and the original armature. Similarly, if I select this bone, this controls the shoulder pad, and this is what it was called in the original armature. So B_MF_armor, shoulder offset on the left side. So going back to scripting, we just need to replace these names to be what they are in our export chain. So this jaw is now going to be called U_jaw, and similarly we just need to update the rest of these names. To help us do this, we can also again just drag this over here, and in this part I can open up Uefy Skin Custom. This is the file that we just scanned previously, and this is the name of all of the bones that will be in the exported file, so we can use this as a reference. So as you can see, we have a jaw and it's called this exactly, so we just copy this over there. And similarly, other things that we need to update are this shoulder bone. So we just find it, what it's called over here. This will be U shoulder armor on the left side. So I'm just going to copy this and I'm going to put this over there. So just remove this and I'm going to put this over there like so. And that's all there is to it. You just have to update these names and that is it. So copy this and then put this over there. No, this is for the top. So this will go over there and the bottom portion will be over here, right? So this is the bottom on the left side and top on the left side. Similarly, we will also update for the right side. So I'm just going to find the bones for the right shoulder armor. Copy this. And that is all the bones that we need to update. Back in layout, we want to make sure to select the armature and have it in object mode. Then we could simply go down here, select the name of the file, custom, and apply the vertex groups. And now, if we move this character, it should deform perfectly. And all of these controls should also be working. So you could move the shoulder pad, or you can rotate parts of it. This controls the bottom part, and this one will control the top part. Similarly, the flaps will also be working, and this character is basically now ready for animation. But there is one piece that is still missing. So if I do this, you'll see that there is something strange going on with the boots. That's because we did not add these two vertex scripts to our character. Now, the preferred way to deal with this would just be to open up the Metarig again, like that, and simply add 2 additional bones for the boots, and that is perfectly fine. We could have built this entire character incrementally. We could have added the flaps and then did the whole generate rig and build skeleton, and then added the shoulder pads and then rebuilt it, and then again and again. So you could build this incrementally. We just did it in one single pass. But the problem here is that if you add a bone over here to the foot, you can see that this heel bone is kind of attached to this foot. So Rigify tends to get confused when you add attachments to this area of the rig. So we just tend to avoid it for this particular sample, for the limb or leg samples. But that's something we just have to accommodate Rigify for here. So another way we can deal with this is to just add it directly to the export chain if you need it. Or another way, yet again, is to just add the vertex script directly to an already existing bones, because this is such a small piece. So that's what I'm choosing to do at this point. I will go into object mode and select the mesh. Remember, the vertex scripts are all in the mesh and not in the armature. So we select the mesh, and then here we could go to vertex scripts, drag this open. There is the boot left and boot right. So I'm going to go into edit mode while on the mesh. Alt-A to deselect everything. Let's go into wireframe mode. Now I can select this. So this is the portion that we need to attach to something else. So I will remove it from this vertex group, and then I'll find the calf. So that would be the calf on the left side, and then I'll simply assign all of these vertices over there, and then I'll do Alt-A to deselect everything. Same for the other side. Select the vertex group, select the vertices, remove these vertices from this group, and then we'll just find the calf on the right side over there, and then assign them over here, and then deselect everything, go back to object mode, solid, select the armature, go to pose mode, and now we try this, and you see our problem is basically fixed. Now we can turn off the transform, turn this off, turn this off. So rig layers to the top, rig main properties right underneath, and open these two. And I'm just going to keep root open here, and then I'm going to deselect this. So now we have just the controls, and we can animate our character, make our animations, and when we are ready to export, we go to object mode, select the mesh, shift click on the armature, do file, export, FBX, and I'm going to select the file that I will export this as, or you could just type it in over there. And then we want only the selected objects, so this will exclude the cameras and lights and anything else that's in the scene. We want only the deformed bones. We don't want to add any leaf bones, and we're not dealing with animation right now. So I'm just going to export this, and this exported will be for Blender-based skeleton joint roll. So we already talked about this in other videos, so you could review those if you want. Similarly, if you want to export this with Unreal Engine Mannequin's original joint rolls for import using the Mannequin's original skeleton, we could do one additional step. I'm going to select the armature, scroll down here right to the bottom around over here in the export panel. Now you want to make absolutely certain that you make a backup of your blend file, because this process is not compatible with Blender or with Rigify. So once we do this, this blend file is only good for exporting this character. You can't do anything else with it. You can't animate with it or anything, but it does make an export that works with Unreal Engine's original skeleton for importing. So I'm just going to click here once, and then again, same thing, select the mesh, shift click on the armature, file, export, FBX, and this time I'm going to select a file name where I will kind of indicate that this is with the Unreal Engine Mannequin joint rolls. So I'm just going to add a postfix to it. Again, same thing, selected objects, and we want only the deformed bones, no leaf bones, and this file can't really even make animations anyway, so just export it like so. And now I could select this and run undo a couple of times just to make sure that this becomes undone. But it's just better if you have a separate file for just for this export. You can also always generate the rig and build a skeleton again that deletes everything and resets everything. So that's another path. If you break something or lose a backup, then you can rebuild it. Now to import our character into Unreal, I'm just going to click on import, select the file with the Blender-based joint rolls, and then just click on open. Now I'm going to leave all of these values to their default settings, and for the skeleton, I will either leave it at none so that it creates a brand new skeleton just for this character, or more likely, I will select the skeleton for the Unreal Engine Mannequin that I rigged in Blender, okay? Not the original, the one that I rigged in Blender. And you can check the tutorial I did on how to do that, and at the end of it, or rather in it, I explain in detail why I do that and how I use it to share animations. But right now, I'm just going to leave it at none and then click on import, and that is it. Now if we click on the character, we can go to the skeleton tab and make sure that the hierarchy actually matches the Unreal Engine Mannequin, which it does. except that this character will now have additional bones. For example, on the head, we have a U face and a U jaw, just like we added in the Metarig and into our final rig. And similarly, we have a shoulder pad controllers, its top and bottom controller, and the flaps on the left and right side, and also the back armor and everything else that we added to the Metarig. From this mesh panel, we can set our materials, but before we do that, let's just go back to skeleton. And one very important thing that you have to do is go to options and show retargeting options. When we select none for the skeleton, or in other words, when Unreal Engine creates a new skeleton for your character, these translation retargeting options on the skeleton will all be set to animation, which does not work very well. So we want to set all of them to skeleton and then set the root to be animation and the pelvis to be animation scaled. And similarly, we want the IKs to be also set to animation, like so. And this is just going to help in retargeting existing animations onto this character. And you also want to click on apply to asset, otherwise the skeleton will not show up in the retargeting list. Just one last thing that I missed is you go back to skeleton, you want to open the retargeting manager and then bring this in and set the rig to be the humanoid rig. And you'll see that these values are already correct because our bone hierarchy matches the Unreal Engine Mannequin. So we don't have to do anything, and our pose is also correct because of the way the add-on posts the skeleton. If you want to import this character using the Unreal Engine Mannequin's original skeleton, we can create a new folder, open this, go to import, and I'm going to select the file with the Unreal Engine Mannequin's joint rolls and then open this. And from here, I can select the original mannequin skeleton that comes with every engine template. And then it's always in game mannequin character match. So in case you have multiple skeletons, you'll know how to identify the correct one. And then I can just do import. And you'll notice that this time it's not going to create a skeleton file because it is using the original mannequin skeleton. You might want to do this if you're using third-party blueprints that were designed for the mannequin skeleton with the original skeleton. But generally, in my process, I usually rig a mannequin in Blender and then use that as my base. And if you look at the video where I rig the mannequin, I have a detailed explanation of why I do that and how I use that to share animations. But if you're using third-party blueprint code, that if those blueprints already exist and you want to use them with your character, then you're going to want this other character with the original joint rolls for the skeleton. But generally, I just use my own.